a lot of the most vile stuff that's happened to me through this just came from people who claim to support Celtic.
Just shocking.
And it's kind of 4 stages it goes through. You know, first they ignore you, then they denounce you, then you become dangerous to them, and then they claim that they knew it all along.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned to deal with over the course of this project, you know, whereas stuff that I'd done previously was kind of cult kind of stuff that a certain section of people would go and through forces of nature and through different mediums, some people have been forced to being confronted with this kind of stuff, and they may not like that because it's me that's done it,
right?
And they have chosen to try and make my life hell. I mean, they have dehumanised me in a lot of respects, you know, which you can't expect from folk who go to Ibrox, but you know, it has to be said there are some sales spotters who have done their absolute best to dehumanise me and to destroy me throughout this project. Now, people have to understand that I come from a world, and anybody that knows me will tell you this. I actually had a long conversation with one of my homeboys comrades about this very subject. Up until about 2-3 years ago, my reaction to that would be, you're going to be picking your head up off the floor, right? Because now I'm not proud of that, but that's where I was brought up.
That's the reality.
That's who I was brought up with, right?
Yeah.
I have to also say, in that respect, there are still people in my life who would happily still do that now. And how I've actually got to the point with some of them who are becoming angry with me because I haven't reacted in that kind of way. And people might say, oh, who do you think you're, a big tough guy? I'm not a big tough guy, but this is how I was brought up. Anybody who was brought up on a council estate and had to face the sort of stuff that I've had to face, my son's had to face, my mother has had to face, would be exactly the same. Now, I've had to temper that with respect to the most important thing in this project was to get the story out here in terms of the level of cheating that was enabled by the Edinburgh establishment and to try and stop David Murray in his tracks. Now, all throughout this project, people kept telling me that, you know, it was all nonsense and it was all lies and all that kind of thing. And here we are, one step away from Murray being arrested. The first 5 have already been arrested. He is number 6 on the board. And I'm not going to sit here and crow and gloat and all the rest of it, but that's what I was telling people the entire time through this project.
Right.
Of course he knew everything about it. I mean, this whole, you know, and it's kind of like these podcasts, the Ask This Year's Book film, and especially the Different Class ebook, see if you still think Craig White was to blame for all this. This isn't for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't bother watching the film, didn't buy the book, didn't anything, because
you're just not going to get it.
You're never going to get it.
No.
And some people say, and also, see if you think that the Daily Record and the Sun have perpetrated all this, again, didn't bother buying the book, because you're just not getting it at all. You know, there's a dictatorship, and there's only one man at the top of a dictatorship, and that's David Murray. And here we are. I said, the day before the premiere, the arrests were made. And people ask me, of course, you know, what do you think of that? Now, I point blank refuse now to talk about the story, the actual story, because the film's out, the audio book's out, the book's out. That's the story. I'm done talking about it. Decide for yourself. We've presented the information. You go along. The first thing I say to people, though, because that was a kind of a new part of it in terms of being arrested, was if they start talking, people are going to start fucking getting arrested. Within 90 minutes, a warrant went out for Craig White's arrest. Now Craig White's been arrested. If he starts talking, let's see the warrants fly then, and then you'll see the big names go.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of what I've had to do in terms of, and people, you know, I say, oh, you should see what so and so's saying about you, and all that kind of thing. That's par for the course. That's unfortunately what happens. It's horrible, and nobody should have to put up with it. I mean, you know, as an aside, you know, I'll gain an insight into my life. So how it goes. Last Friday, someone who was at the premiere decided to put a list of spoilers on Facebook, the film, and give it this. I enjoyed it, but. And I was like, said to him privately, I said, you can have any opinion you want on the film, but why on earth would you do that? You know, why would you put spoilers up? And he's like, well, what's to stop anybody doing that? I was kind of like, decency.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that kind of thing. So that was that. So, you know, eventually that kind of calmed down. Then this Facebook account from anywhere put my address, tagged my address onto this post.
Oh,
So I was
God.
just like, what the hell is this now? You know what I mean? So who the hell is this? And of course, they weren't a friend, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how they'd seen it, whatever. So I'd spoken to my mate earlier on. I said, do you want to go for a drink? Because I was kind of like, you know, I didn't really get out because it's all this is constantly going on and all that kind of thing. And he said, oh, I think he was having to stay in for a delivery or something. And I said, you know what, I'll bring a few cans into your house. And I actually walked up from my house up to his house, which is Easter Road, Fairtrek. And I'm sitting there, I've got the cans, boom, couple of cans, whatever, talking away. And the next thing my phone goes, and it was the police saying, you know, where are you, blah, 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 blah. So at first I'm thinking this could be a wind up because I've never, you know, a guy's just phoned me up and said it's the police.
Right, yeah, it could be
I
anybody.
don't know if it's, you know, if it's, you know. So I was, what's your name, divisional number, etc. Phoned up my local police station. They confirmed that they'd got the call out and get down to find that 3 people had tried to put a sledgehammer through my front door.
Jesus.
So then it clicked into place that the address going on the Facebook site wasn't somebody opportunistically going, oh, there's his address now. It was mere, we've got your address.
And
then
we're
that's
coming.
what happened.
Yeah.
Now, I'm telling you right now, a Friday night, I'm never out. Unbelievable I was this night. So what's happened is the neighbours heard the noise and they've kind of chased them and, you know, the door was kind of hanging off and whatever, but, you know, it certainly could have been a lot worse than it, wasn't it? Now, then I had to deal with the police for most of the night because it was kind of like, why would they want to do this? And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they start asking me questions like I'm the criminal.
Right, yeah.
You know, like I'm the one that's done this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not saying nothing to them. So it's like, look, this is what happened. Neighbours done statements, that's the kind of thing. No sleep whatsoever. I had to then move out the house until Tuesday, till the door gets fixed. Because that's the earliest we can fit the door fixed, Tuesday.
Unbelievable.
Friday night. Door's hanging off. You know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
The morning, I then have to go. I'm going to Celtic Park. And why am I going to Celtic Park? Because I'm taking James, who had his life threatened and had to listen to my life getting threatened, and had a horrific experience at a Celtic game as well, to try and make up for that. So to take him to Celtic Park for a day out and stuff like that, right? Because he'd been really affected by it.
Sure.
James being my eldest son.
Yeah.
So I'm having to do that and protect him for the fact that what's happened to the door, because and as if that's not happened. You know, I'm getting phone calls for the police, I'm getting phone calls for the fucking council, all this kind of thing, you know, whilst we're going through on the train.
Unbelievable.
And it's just like, you know, what the fuck? So that was kind of like, you know, did it have to be the night and have to be last night and all that sort of thing? And then, so we get James in, and it was absolutely brilliant, and I can't thank the people at Celtic enough because, you know, it was a bit to and fro, but once he got done, and he went in and met all the players, went in the dressing room before the game, met Ronnie Dyla and all that kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, he was literally dumbstruck.
That's
It
great.
was like, you know, it was like, so what do you think? He's just like, yeah. You know, like, yeah. I mean, what would you think, you know, at that age? You know, he's only 13, he's in the Celtic home dressing room with all the team an hour before the kickoff. You know, I mean, just mind-blowing, met the manager, everybody.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So that was fantastic. So then I was like, right, okay, sit, seats, you know, boom, all the rest of it, have a drink, whatever, bang, brilliant. Come back for there, went to the Kerridale suite. James wanted to watch the Arsenal Man United game, so we watched that there. Met Eddie Toner, met Jeanette Finlay, met Mark, all those people coming up. How you doing, blah, blah. I was like, great, you know. Life's getting back to normality. Put a tweet about, in the next 3.5 years is in Larne and get absolutely dogs abuse. What the fuck are you going there for? Loyalist shithole, boom, 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 all the time.
In spite of the fact that you've already done a book launch, a very successful book launch there, you know, you still get these comments.
And also, I'm getting a guy tweeting me every day, demolish Larne, hashtag demolish Larne.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, apart from the fact that there's the first Catholic mayor of every Larne there now, who's a friend of mine, there's a GAA club in Larne, you're completely just shitting over the people of Larne, the good people that have looked after me, you know, that have organised a book launch last year, that have organised a screening tonight and all that sort of thing. And now I'm getting abused for going to go and see them. So I kind of say to my mate Gary Bergen, I said, I said, I should be on the payroll of the Alarm Tourist Board. The amount of bumming up I do.
That's a great point.
Because I'm saying to them, no, it's fine. I've never, that, and on and on and on. And so, I end up arguing with people about why I'm going to Alarm and why you're not going to Belfast. Because nobody asked us to go to Belfast. We wanted to go to Belfast. Nobody was interested. Can I go if nobody's interested? Why you not go to Derry? Again, we could have been in Derry, but nobody was interested. Nobody come forward. That's it. And I'm all night back. And so, by this time, eventually, this is the whole train on the way back. James is wanted to do the quiz in the programme. Never done that because I'm dealing with all this all the time. And then eventually get him back. Come back to my house to realise, wait a minute, I'm not coming to the house. I have to go back up to my ma's, knock her on the door. She's already in her bed. She's like, what the hell, blah, 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 this, that. I can't tell her why I'm there because then she's going to be worried and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And I went, all right, fine, boom, boom, and they sit down, boom, and literally crash out. And all of that happened, Graham, in a 24-hour period.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? And that's like an insight into what it's like and has been like for a long time for me right now.
And the only sort of comforting sentiment that you can give yourself is that it's got to get better. It's got to get better than this, And I mean, it's so hard to remain grounded and to have the perspective with that when, to your point, it seems like it's constant. But my overriding reflection and conclusion is that there's a lot of people out there, and as you detail, people even that wear the same color as us, that feel as though, wait a second, you shouldn't have this success. You shouldn't have, this sort of power, for lack of a better word, or recognition, for doing something good. And yet, and you've had these roadblocks put up in front of you the whole way. Not just with this project, but the projects that you've worked on in the past and your whole life. And I think that gets to the root of let's talk about the ebook for a second. Different Class. This is it's an audacious compliment to the movie itself. And I think there's an element, throughout society that says this is the way that you're supposed to do it. This is what you're supposed to look like, how you're supposed to behave, where you're supposed to come from, etc. And you smashed all of that down. Tell us a little bit about, sort of the theme and the thought process behind the ebook, the accompanying ebook to Astro Skiers entitled Different Class.
Well, I mean, what you touched on there is like, I've never expected help from anybody because, for millions of people, that's how it is. You need to give you a hand, you've got to deal with yourself and that kind of thing. And bit by bit, you do sort of break down some barriers and that, whereas other people will just kind of try and reinforce them. And throughout it, as I've said pretty much throughout everything I've done, the most abuse I get is a result of snobbery. In the sense that, you shouldn't be doing this, I mean, I was getting told, 2 weeks ago, you're barely literate, you're an embarrassment to Celtic, and, you didn't know anything about Celtic, and all this kind of thing. And that's a kind of constant soundtrack in my life. And so what I wanted to try and do in the book was say that, I struggled with saying a lot of this. I struggled with a lot of this, not in the sense of the criticism, but in the sense of the confidence. And having the confidence to kind of stick your chest out and say, look, here's what I've done, hope you like it, and that's it. And there was a kind of learning process that happened to me, particularly throughout the film, as a detail in the book, that allowed me to do that. And it allowed me to actually be more confident and be someone who could stick their chest out and say, that's it. Now, I mean, that then means that, people will say, oh, who the hell do you think you are, and all that kind of thing. But what I've always tried to do, and I've done more and more recently, is surround myself with people who say, why not? Rather than why,
Exactly.
Because negativity is a huge thing in that respect, especially in the kind of Scottish culture where anything you try to do is sort of... No, I mean, like I've written loads of books and things and all that kind of thing, but I've never been someone who's been recognised as being an author about Celtic, or been on that circuit of events where people have stuff and they invite off. I'm never ever have I been any part of that or sought to be any part of that. I've just tried to do myself and be myself and who I can be and all the rest of it. But by